here.
There
Hey,
are too
Bob.
many people talking. I can't hear your AC.
I
here.
told Megan.
Cool.
Are we still in instance
Nice,
one?
okay.
Yeah, we're doing.
Yeah, we
instance
love
one.
Instance 1. Instance 1 is the place
Were you
to
helping
be.
him at?
Let's
Well,
go.
was he helping you at
Do you
the
want to go? Will we
section
go to
too?
Instance 10?
Yes,
I don't think
Sebek-
anybody's ever been to
no,
Instance
Sebek
10
was
before.
helping me
I've been to
with
instance
there.
like 20
What
something
sex does
randomly
It's a
once.
black
It
hole.
was crazy.
He
We
doesn't
go to
know me
Instance
for
100,
his
see what
love.
happens. Whoa.
Oh, she has to leave. I
Can we
didn't
go
know
around
that.
there?
Okay.
Wait, so you were invited?
Is there somebody underneath? Oh,
Oh, I
Kurt.
have proof.
Yeah,
that was
was.
weird. Proof.
Oh,
Shaq Kurt out
interesting.
like 20
What
something.
section?
What have I walked in on?
That's crazy.
No, he was helping me with my volume. He had me download a program that made my
Oh,
background
nice.
noise basically
For your mic.
disappear. While it
Hey,
did
Sebek.
this.
Oh, nice.
What are you going to do when we change the guest avatar? You're going to be very sad. You and Babu.
I
You're gonna
already
to-
have some more
Oh,
balls, so
Yes? Oh, well, that's impressive. Yeah. Yeah, we're going to have a whole thing where, you protest and stuff. Right?
yes, we will
Save the
protest.
guest. Hashtag save the guest or whatever. Right?
Well, these textures.
I mean, I'll go. I'll be there. I'll hold a sign.
Organized
Uh,
protest.
Shouldn't Bavu use it or keep it as a kind of a exclusive avatar?
Yeah. I mean, I don't
The
know.
thing is, I have a profile picture that shows that I'm the ball.
There you go.
Babu has the stock profile picture.
I'm sure we can come up with something. I'm sure we can figure something out. So yeah, for anybody that missed it, I just randomly announced it before we started the event. Megan is this week's second winner of a Quest 3. So everybody put your hands
I'm
together
so
for Megan.
freaking excited. You have no idea.
Yay!
Don't
for
sound, but I'm
Megan.
clapping.
Awesome.
So freaking excited.
Wait, I can actually clap.
You should add a ball
Oh.
for the ball.
Oh yeah.
So welcome everybody. Right, we're several minutes into the live stream, and I'm just waffling here at the top, but I may as well introduce what this is. This is Space Makers. This is typically where we come to talk about making spaces, but honestly, the topic sometimes gets a little bit off topic, so to speak. So that's fine too. But yeah, I'll just point to this website behind me like I always do. The Discord and the docs in the top right are usually the best place to go if you want to get information about building spaces. Right now, things are transitioning a little bit, and we're getting ready to launch a brand new SDK. So pretty soon, there's going to be more information, more docs. So keep an eye out for that. In fact, some of you might have already seen them. I've shared them on the Discord, at least the working version. They're still incomplete, and I'm still working through that. I'm hoping to greatly improve on the samples, the sample code especially. And yeah, I want to outline all of the contribution guidelines. So yeah, let's see. Somebody's bouncing around who was up on the thing a second ago. Is it Informal Turquoise? If you've got a question, I can answer your question if you've got a question. No question?
No question.
I got a question.
Go ahead, Megan.
So something I came across yesterday or last night was the sound. So I know if you're in an event and there's sound playing on the screen, you can go up to it and turn it down. And I think there's a hand if you're in VR, right? It's like on your wrist or something. Is there possibly, or can there possibly be another way if you're in 2D to turn it down without having to kind of like look like you're barging up to the screen to turn it down? Because it's hard to get like the cursor where it is. You have to kind of go close to it.
Yeah. I think right now it's kind of tricky, but fairly soon it should become a lot easier. We're about to just throw our entire menu out the window and replace it with a brand new one that's way better. So once we're over that hump, I would say it'll be a lot easier for us to look at maybe there's some way we can have space settings, like a section in the menu that populates anything specific to the space, which could include volume on the video player, possibly. Um, yeah, there might be some better way to navigate the hand, right? Maybe there's a way anything could happen in future with the menus that we're working on, and we've even toyed with the idea of some sort of wrist mounted or wrist worn menu, and maybe there's a way to just in 2D mode, right? Just pull your hand up in front of you, so then you can click on things real quick. Um,
Yeah,
but
because the
yeah,
voice
I
settings
mean,
for the voice settings are really nice. It
yeah,
was just if there even if it was like a I don't know a world sounds type of thing or something, but that was the
yeah,
only that was the only thing. Everything else is great.
yeah, yeah. The video
I
player, it is a little bit trickier because really it's not the video sound, it's more the browser sound, right? And we've
gotcha.
struggled to find a way reliably on all platforms to control the global volume of that browser, especially on Android. It doesn't seem to give it as a separate stream. All you can do is turn the master volume up and down, which obviously makes no sense. That's going to turn everything up and down
Mhm.
whenever you try to control that. But what the video player does is it actually injects and controls the volume slider on the actual YouTube player. But yeah, like I say, if we can have a section in the menu where you can have space settings, then there could be a nice, quick, and easy way, like you say, to have a world sound section or a video player volume section that you'd be able to quickly mute or turn it down, or any of the options, I guess, that you've got on it. I think with the video player, I've been talking about it for a little while, but on the other side of the SDK, once we've got that out, I'm probably going to look at trying to rebuild the video player. I'm probably going to try and add support in there for maybe a few other different things that we've been doing. Maybe try to consolidate the live streaming in the video player. Maybe adding support for playing video files direct, not just YouTube videos, for instance. So there might be a
That'd be
native
cool.
video player I might try and integrate into the same system, right? And then just have it all controlled by a synchronized playlist in some fashion. But yeah, stay tuned for that. We're probably going
I
to try
will.
and build a new video player that improves on the current one.
Very cool. Thanks, Shane.
Yeah, no problem.
Shit.
Go ahead,
I hate
Lee.
getting on this thing. Um, is there? I hear a lot of complaints from new people about the ropes. Um,
Yes.
and is there a possible way in the future, maybe, to make it so you can turn it on and off?
Yes. I think the plan is to have it so that the space can enable it, but it won't be on by default. You'll have to just pop
Okay.
open the menu, and it might be a similar thing to what I was saying to Megan. There's like a space settings screen where maybe you can turn it on there, but only if it's been
Right.
enabled for that space. So yeah, totally get it. That's the accidental Spider-Man issue is
Yeah.
a real struggle. I totally get it.
They
Hello.
come in.
Uh,
I'm total new here. as I discovered, but yesterday. One
That's
question,
cool.
and it remembers me much of Allspice VR, which I loved, but unfortunately was shut down.
God rest
Um,
its soul.
One question here. The what I read there's some. What can you tell me something about the tracker support?
Trigger
For
support.
example, Slime VR or Vive
Oh,
trackers.
gotcha. Tracker
How's the
support.
support?
I'm with you.
What is the future? What is the current state?
Yes, absolutely. That's a great question. Uh, right now, we don't have support, but it is absolutely something that we are excited about integrating into the app. We've brought a new person into the team, somebody with a background in AAA gaming. They were
Okay.
very much involved in building out really big parts of games that you will have definitely heard of, and they're particularly experienced in building out avatar mechanics. Right, everything to do with avatars. So uh, yeah, the hope there is that they can really help us expand on everything really related to the avatar, and that's going to include full body tracking, as well as
Uh-huh.
finger tracking, as well as hopefully a bunch of stuff. Hand pose is something that we could look into, improved IK. Maybe a whole new improved physics character controller compared to what we've got today. But
Yeah.
yeah, body tracking is definitely going
I
to be
think it's
on
it will
that
bring
roadmap.
new people from other communities to Banter. I think if we have tracker support, I think for example, the dance community, we have here. I seen we have here a dance room where we can move. It will be fun. I think when we can see also the whole body moving.
Yes.
Also, would be interesting to see have a fight room. I don't know if you have already a fight room. Imagine
Wow,
like a virtual taekwondo inside Banter.
that's
That would
interesting.
also bring a new community inside Banter. I think we should think in communities to see what we can bring here in to maintain the interest on Banter. We have to learn from what has why Outspace has failed and where we can go in the future to maintain yeah to to increase the community.
Yeah, no, I completely agree. Something we've been talking about a lot internally is a protocol called OSC, which is currently being used by VR Chat to be able to map in various different sensors, right? Various different tracking inputs to do lots of different things. Everything from eye and face and tongue tracking to toe tracking to God knows what else. But yeah, it's something we were talking about internally as we rebuild our avatar system, which is one of the next major things on our roadmap. It's basically just about to start within weeks, I would say, that
Uh,
we're going to be looking at integrating OSC support, which may actually overlap with body tracking, although I do think we'll have to have native support for Vive trackers on PC, on Steam at
mhm,
least. And we'll likely also add native support for the, half and half body tracking slash estimation system that Quest 3 now has, right? Where it can estimate things like your waist and your elbows and
mhm,
stuff like that, and then or tracks your waist and estimates your leg positions, that kind of stuff. So right now, I think that's probably the strategy that we'll take. We'll aim for a wide net and a wide net of support with OSC and maybe a bit of future proofing there too in terms of future sensors. But then directly target Vive tracker support and Quest 3
okay.
full body tracking too,
Mhm.
and
Yeah,
Quest
because
2.
okay.
Yeah, and then dance battles. Woohoo!
Dance battles, that's right. Taekwondo dance battles. I love it.
That's the one. That's the one.
Oh, that would be crazy.
Yeah.
What
I
is
would
your
just
vision?
dust off the I'd dust off the Kinect and boot up Driver 4 VR just for that.
Oh boy.
Yeah.
What is your vision? What is the vision of Banter for the future? How I don't know how you finance, or is open, or will you have a future of open source community, or are you looking to make a business model out of Banter to finance the development?
Uh,
How? Yeah.
That's a great question. So Banter is a product of SideQuest. I'm not sure if you're familiar with SideQuest. So
Yes. Yes. I
SideQuest
know.
is yeah. So Banter kind of serves a multitude of purposes for us here in SideQuest. It's an opportunity for us to kind of, I guess, build out our own what we would describe as a social VR. I hate to use the term metaverse, right? But that's what we want to try to build. And I think in some respects, we've got a different approach to how interoperable things can be, right? And we've kind of tried to lean on existing open standards and web standards and tried to not reinvent the wheel and instead, incorporate things that are already out there so people don't have
Mhm.
to learn something new. And Yeah, I mean, for us, we're building this out as part of a greater effort within SideQuest for us to explore building out generally platform services overall, right? So providing a suite of platform services which we can dog food here in Banter and test things out. But also, yeah, we want to create, I guess, along with everybody here, what we think, this future VR metaverse kind of thing could be. And I think there's a number of examples out there, from Rec Room to Gorilla Tag to VR Chat to Horizon Worlds to, I mean, big
Yeah,
screen even a
different
little bit.
directions and different communities. Yeah. Mm,
Yeah, but we definitely have there's a lot of unique stuff about what's going on here in Banter. A lot of stuff you just won't find anywhere else. So I think we're going after our own sort of side of things, let's say. But yeah, I mean, I think for us, we're pretty stable. We have plenty of runway. For now, we're going to focus more on trying to build cool things within the platform, and monetizing will come later. But we've thought about that, and I think to some degree you could probably expect something like what VR Chat has with a VR Chat Plus, mostly probably a cosmetic thing, right? Like Discord Nitro, all that kind of end user optional subscription model is probably where we'll eventually end up ourselves. But I mean, we've got some people we're talking to already who are interested in exploring how to monetize stuff. And it's kind of the same sort of thing as you would expect on the internet, right? Because this is one of the aspects about Banter. Every space is a web address, right? And every space is kind of built into a web page. And what that means is that you can use the decades worth of experience we have with creating and building out all of this integrated technology on the web and bring that in here, which includes things like monetization and payment flows. And yeah, there's lots of
mm,
cool and interesting ways you could potentially build that stuff out. But we're talking to some people who want to explore ways to bring in some really headline talent to do some content creation and shows and stuff like that in here. And they're thinking about, that whole premium tier as well. I mean, we're also pretty passionate about things like crowdfunding, right? So being able to maybe integrate with platforms like Coffee or PayPal.me or Patreon for creators to
mhm,
be able to generate potentially extra revenue. But like I say, all of that is just way down the line for us right now, because
mm.
right now we're just trying to have fun uh, more than anything
Okay.
else. And we're hoping that that is going to attract other people who also want to have fun. Maybe we can all have a little bit of fun together. And yeah, yeah, I mean, the only other thing to mention, which I think is something that's a worthwhile topic, it's a good segue for this meeting, is the fact that we just announced that the latest version of our SDK is going to be open source. To your comment before about where we stand on
Yeah.
open source,
Yeah. Yeah.
right?
Where we stand
So
on and where the future will be, to see. It's always interesting to see the vision of something, to know where it goes, and so we can expect some things and other things not. Yeah. I think what we could Banter could also go the way, for example, to monetize like CO, like selling avatars, for example. Uh,
yeah, this could certainly be in the future. I would think something like that
because
is
not.
probably more of a community ecosystem, a community marketplace to some degree. Um, I think there's a lot of opportunity for creators who are making a lot of avatars for them to be able to
Yeah, you
monetize in
could
that
create a
case.
marketplace or something like that. So
Yeah,
yeah, when people come in here, they choose as they get the default avatars, but when they want something special, they find the creators, and yeah,
yeah. Well, avatars is it's
okay.
just going to be avatars for us probably now for the next 6 months, right, Aline? That's all we're going to be doing, is trying to come up with really cool ways to improve the avatar experience. We've already started because we're working on a brand new version of this avatar system that opens up whole new possibilities in terms of what your avatar can do and how lifelike it looks and how responsive it is, loads of different things, and getting it ready for the future of more sensors and tracking, right? So that's definitely going to be an exciting place to watch. I'm hoping that we can set up some regular content as well, so that maybe every 1 to 2 weeks we can come in and show you in real time some of the progress that we're making on avatars. Because honestly, yeah, this new hire, which I'm probably going to put a formal announcement together for during the week, starts tomorrow, and from then, beyond a kind of an onboarding week, right, for them to kind of just get a sense of the company. Beyond that, the fun starts, right, in terms of what we're going to do with the avatars. And I mean, in future, you can probably expect something as exciting and as capable as what you can get on a platform like VR Chat. But what we're going to hopefully bring to that ourselves is a focus on performance. So we're going to try and make sure that avatars can be cool and can be really customized and representative and all of that sort of stuff. Lots of bells and whistles in terms of features, but we can still get good frames on a standalone device in a room with, around 30 people. So yeah, that's what you can expect from us on the avatar front.
Thank you.
Thank you, John. Awesome. Right. Well, yeah, I'm just going to waffle on then, unless anybody else wants me to answer anything specific. If you do, make your way up onto the podium. One thing that I mentioned in an announcement a couple of days ago on the Discord was that with the new SDK, and I mentioned that it's going to be open source, there's going to be an official process to contribute to the SDK, to basically create new components that can be added into the system so that you'll be able to use those at runtime. So that opens up a whole world of possibilities, right? And I mean, I guess I should be honest. It doesn't mean that we're definitely going to accept absolutely any kind of contribution, but if it's reasonable and it's pretty cool, you can be assured we're definitely going to be interested in trying to work with the community here. I mean, I think more than anything, this is really us trying to kind of set the stage and set ourselves up as we mean to go on, and to kind of put it out there that we can collaborate on this. What we've built is this system behind the scenes that's able to generate most of the code that we need for the SDK. So what that means is that in this new system, you'll be able to come in and define what's called a model, which is where you can basically decide what properties you want to have. If it's an existing Unity component, it's basically a mapping, right? You can create a mapping and expose an existing Unity component, and it becomes very easy. We can accept that into the repo, trigger the build that will do the code generation, which basically just does some boilerplate communication code between, JavaScript land and Unity land. I mean, for instance, for any of you that may have seen the documentation already, there's a concept of components. Components are, a lot of you will get this anyway from Unity and other systems, right? But it's functionality on top of a game object being the basic building block of world building. And the idea will be that we can create new components together as we go. And the hope is that that process should be very quick and easy. So, if you guys have something and you want it, there's a chance that we can get that into the next build. And I'd love to get into the flow of that so that we can kind of work on all of this together, right? Honestly, for me, that's the most exciting part about the fact that the SDK is going to be open source, right? Apart from the fact that it's just a little bit easier to work with in general. Honestly, I had always been an advocate internally of us open sourcing this SDK for a few different reasons, but I kind of built it from the start with that in mind. It was isolated inside of a Unity package. It comes in via the package manager. It's got its own set up with several assembly definitions. Everything is really boxed out in Unity. And there's no proprietary dependencies, right? Nothing that's not open source, at least some permissive MIT license. So we're quite lucky that that's the makeup that we're, the state that we're in, because it really untangles things, takes a lot of stuff out of the way to be able to think about open sourcing it. And actually, when it boiled down to the conversation about open sourcing it, we were really just weighing up the pros and cons of not open sourcing it. And the truth is, it just made our build systems more complicated. It created dependency and platform problems if we want to support multiple platforms with the SDK in future. It just made things a lot more complex, and it made it harder, right? If something goes wrong with what you're doing in the wild, depending on what you know, you may or may not be able to look into the problem. And if that's the case, you can't really do that if you don't have the source. And not that that's something we completely expect, but it could be something that can really help, move your project forward if you run into a brick wall that can be solved and you know how. We can accept a PR, merge it in, get it into the next build, right? So that's basically it. A huge chunk of the core of the game is going to be open to the world for you to be able to explore and look into. And yeah, together, hopefully, we can create a collection of components that make it possible to make all sorts of cool things in here. We're going to be really open to doing whatever the hell you guys want with that. There's really not going to be any kinds of restrictions, right? Yeah. So, yeah, that's pretty much it.
Are you talking about things that you can do in your own personal world?
Yes, that's right.
Okay. And
I'm talking about
maybe
building
something
worlds.
you only experience.
And no, it could be synchronized. It could be something that
okay.
everybody experiences.
Okay.
Yeah, for sure. In fact, that's some things that we have built into the SDK is the facility to synchronize stuff. It's just there, right?
Right.
In the past, in other systems, it depends. Some systems have got limited ways to synchronize data. With VR chat, you've got a limited amount of data you can send over and back, and you can make a limited number of web requests, but it's very, very restricted. And in Altspace back in the day, we remember with the MREs, you had to run your own server side to be able to communicate with multiple clients at the same time to achieve that synchronization. But we've built in stuff that allows you to send broadcast messages or one-shot messages to everybody in the room, so you can do whatever kind of syncing. That's basically how, like, let's say emoji works, right? I press a button, sends a message to everybody, tells you all, spawn an emoji above my head and make it float up in the air, right? That's exactly how that works with what you call one-shots. And then separate from that, there's also two other synchronization methods that involve more persistent data than that. We have space state properties, which some of you may be familiar with, but also a new concept, which has actually always been there, but we're going to be expanding on it and really developing it out as part of SDK v2, which is user state properties, right? So this is kind of a semi-persistent property that exists against a user in that space. So it's linked to both the user and the space. There may also be other dimensions. We might go to a more fully persistent, like, key value store that allows you to store stuff against users that's more permanent. But generally, these are just the kind of things that you would have for, creating user-specific configurations, saving their settings when they choose them, communicating between users for the purposes of whatever, a game, or, storing somebody's, I don't know, their entitlement to access a VIP area. Who knows? It could be just your buddies or your patrons or whatever. There's honestly a lot of different things. And I will list them all right now until somebody else comes up and asks me a question. I will list them all from start to finish. You can do, starting with A, you can make apples.
Hmm.
You can make. Oh, Shoseki's got a question. Go ahead, Shoseki. I will. Yes, that is true. That's a great question. I'll just repeat that for the purposes of the stream. So Shoseki was wondering if we're going to store values against users, if those values are very easy to change, because in JavaScript land, it's very easy to change everything. None of the code is compiled. It's all just available there in source form, let's say. And yeah, I think that's a really great question. Honestly, it's one that comes up every now and again, and it's one that we struggle with ourselves as well when it comes to certain things, right? Like, why doesn't the video player just know that you're the mod in the space, and it can't just treat you as the mod in the space? We're still investigating, and I haven't totally given up, but the problem is that it's very easy to hack that system and make it think that you're mod when you're not. It's basically a security, compromise to uh, to be able to implement something like that, right? You wouldn't be able to guarantee, and that comes to other mod actions as well, obviously, like muting people, megaphoning people, kicking people, banning people. If somebody were able to abuse something like that from within a space, things would be pretty crazy pretty quickly. And I know this because uh, yeah, well, I mean, sorry, go ahead, Shoseki. Well, actually, to that specific problem, there's already a solution, believe it or not. There's a concept of public and private space state properties and user state properties. Public properties can be set by any user, but private ones can only be set by admins. So, as an admin, if you try to set as a non-admin, if you try to set private property, it just simply won't update. It will just return the previous value of that property rather than whatever value you've tried to update it to. So there is a concept of admin locking within the space state system, which is pretty cool. There's probably also a way for us to tack on admin checks within the native code, within the application, for things like one shots. So you could decide whether or not people could do those based on whether they were admin or not, right? Um, but yeah, I mean, I think the point there is that there is kind of a little bit of an air gap, a sandbox environment with the browser, which is honestly great. It makes what we're doing much easier to do because it gives you lots of power and capability without necessarily having to compromise security or install a bunch of limitations, which is really exciting. But also, we kind of have to treat that whole environment from our perspective as you know always compromised in that sense, if you get what I'm saying. Anybody who's built applications understands that if there's a server and a client side relationship, you never trust the client. That's basically the rule of thumb when it comes to building these kinds of things, that the client you can basically consider to be always compromised. And if that's the way, then you really have to bear in mind how people are going to be able to access certain things and develop patterns around that don't allow people to be able to inadvertently access things. Like, I'll give you an example. I had a modified client back in the day in AltSpace, and I could just whip that megaphone on and off whenever I wanted, and I did. I'd randomly drop into people's worlds, turn on the megaphone, and just say the word testicles, and then leave. That's all I would do. And yeah, I shouldn't have been able to do that. That should have been disabled. That shouldn't have been something that I could do. And that's because They trusted the client more than they should have. It's not something you can currently do in Banter because all of that goes through a server and a server decides, okay, am I going to set megaphone for this person? Have they got the power and ability to do that? And you would have to, I assume, compromise our server side to be able to get that same kind of capability as I had back in Altspace. So that's just the kind of conversation I guess we have to have is how do we make sure that we don't compromise things when we expose some of that power and capability into JavaScript land. But like I said, I'm not totally convinced uh, that there's no way to do it. I believe there might be an opportunity. It's not. It won't be completely unhackable, but there might be a way to like inject some properties that are like read only onto the window at a very early stage in the loading process of the browser, and to try and do that before anything else, so that you could know at least is the current user a mod, and have a global property on the window that you can check that can never be changed after it's first been set up, right? So there's a few different things that we're exploring to see if there's a way to do this. But the honest truth is, even something like that, I'll tell you right now, you get the debugger open, you have a breakpoint, you pause the browser, the execution hasn't occurred yet. At that point, you have the opportunity to potentially modify that property before it gets set. And that's just it's a really difficult problem to solve. Yeah, and to try and make sure that things sort of work without them being compromised. And that is the really long-winded explanation as to why the video player has its own mod system that is separate from the mod system that's in the game, is because that honestly right now is the only way that we can guarantee that it is secure, is to just have it be a floating mod that you get in a couple minutes early and you can lock it down, and then usually things are pretty controlled. I think I got a bit off topic there. uh, yeah, yeah, yeah. So anybody else, any questions you've got, feel free to make your way up there, and that will stop me from babbling like an idiot. I mean, I do love babbling. Feel free. Oh, Sebek, and he
Have you
fell off.
spoken to Have you spoken to Mupalu, and can you speak about the vulnerability he found or no?
Yes, I sure can. So Mupalu has an understanding of how browsers work, and he can access the debugger. He knows how to do that. That's something that we've built into the game, and we expect people will do. So I would say it's fair to say that what he describes as a security vulnerability in that instance is absolutely not a security vulnerability. It's a known issue, something that we're well aware of and have been for a while. But yeah, it's really part of the reason why we've got this browser-based environment is that you can sandbox that environment, right? Whatever people can do there, the most they could do to affect you as a user, to affect your device, uh, is all only things that they would be able to do inside of a browser, right? On a web page. So that gives us that really nice, secure sandbox that anything that happens in there is generally safe. But yeah, I mean, let's be honest here. If you can get access to the debugger, you can go in and inspect the network tab. You can see what requests are going on. You can see open connections to WebSockets. You can inject messages there and then and send them up to WebSockets. You can tell the WebSockets what your score is. There's lots of ways, right? We've never really considered it to be that serious. And I think Remarcus treats it the same. You're going to get people that can take advantage of the situation, and he just moderates them. That's what we do, right? We moderate people. They don't win a prize if they cheat, obviously. But we've seen it, right? People can get 0 seconds in the winter sport resort, or 9999999 seconds if they want, right? And it's something that Hubber puts out as a challenge every time he does one of his games is you can win by hacking, right? So clearly this is something that we kind of embrace a little bit, because obviously in the web-based environment it's not as much of a problem for us unless you really really want it to be a hard problem to solve. And I'd put the challenge out there, I've put it out there before. If anybody wants to try and reverse engineer and figure out my click me button system, I have layers upon layers of obfuscation there. I have data embedded into images, decrypted on the fly, generated all obfuscated, crazy stuff. So if you really want to, you can always take measures to try to protect things. But, like any kind of computer system, it can always be compromised. Go ahead, Uber. What have you got for us?
Yeah, there is a setting to disable the debugger.
Yes.
DevTools enabled, but that apparently only works for PC. So the debugger on Quest over ADB cannot be disabled, or is that something that could come to Banter, that if you set DevTools enabled to false, that the debugger on Quest is also disabled?
That is the hope, and we've still been we're still exploring that, to be honest. We put a bit of work into trying to enable that and discovered there were some quirks about how the Android-based system works, and actually it involved these browsers, right? The 2D browsers that are in the spaces as well, because those are also on Android at least. They're exactly the same web view system behind the scenes that drive those as the one that drives the space. And we discovered it's a global setting, right? Basically, if any one of these were to enable debugging for themselves, it enables it for the world as well, which made things kind of complicated. Basically, at the time, we had bigger fish to fry, so we deprioritized it for now. But we hope to be able to nail that one in future so that we can lock down debugging whenever you choose to. So it's a little bit harder for people to be able to inject and do various things, right?
Yeah,
But all
it's
that being
kind of easy.
said, there'll still be a means to do it, right? People can just mod the client and make it so that their debugger will open, right? That's always going to be something that they'll be able to do. But that's it depends really down the line as to how far we want to go when it comes to how do we protect the most sensitive data when it comes to it, right? And it could be that there's some future things that we can help build in that might help you to do things. Maybe there's ways we can allow you to obscure certain things in the scene so they can't be seen, or maybe set properties that then become read-only and can't be changed again. I mentioned that before. There might be some tools that you can use that might be able to help this. The space state properties as well, having an admin in the space and they're the ones that administer the scoring and that kind of stuff. There could be some ways that could be a lot harder to hack, let's say, that we can explore in future. And I definitely think, some of those, like the space state, they would need to hack our server to be able to do that one, which
Change
is
that.
obviously going to be a lot harder.
Yeah. No, cool. Looking forward to that. Thank you.
Yeah, no problem. I mean, this is the sort of thing that I think is going to be a really great candidate for SDK v2 when it's finally out there. Is what do you guys want us to build out as components, right? What can we do there? And when I say component, maybe some of you guys are thinking I'm talking just pure Unity, but in actual fact, the way the new SDK works is that when you set up your component, the kind of thing that everybody will be able to do, not just us, but it will just automatically generate the equivalent JavaScript side of that component, right? So you're going to be talking about JavaScript land at that point as much as you would be talking about Unity land, right? It's going to be either or. You'll be able to do both. And then there'll also be Unity visual scripting on top of that as well, which we're going to be digging into tomorrow as well to get enabled. We've got some preparatory work done there, but we just need to nail down some of the ahead of time compilation stuff that needs to be done in order to once again protect some of those more sensitive areas when it comes to Unity's visual scripting, right? So there's no access to any of system IO to be able to write to the file system or anything like that, because obviously that could be pretty dangerous on an end user's machine. So there's going to be some elements of that visual scripting that will be disabled that's fairly standard. Other platforms that use visual scripting, Unity's visual scripting includes Spatial, if any of you are familiar with that, and they have a similar setup, right? They have actually a similar setup. Fun fact: their SDK is also open source. Yeah, fun for open source. It's MIT licensed as well. I'll be honest, we're going to take some inspiration from it. So that is the great thing about open source, right? Something is MIT and released, then we can benefit from the hard work that they've done, and who knows, maybe they'll learn something from our SDK too. Yeah, in the future, it could be possible for other people to integrate the SDK into their own games. In fact, that might even be a service that we plan to offer at SideQuest in general, is just some tools or a toolkit overall that makes it easier to build games. Go ahead, Armwolf.
Yes, you're talking about scripting a lot here for the SDK 2.0,
Yes.
right?
Yes.
Is there some documentation on which kind of scripting that is going to be used, so we know what to try to read up on if we are interested?
Yes, absolutely. It's kind of a working document right now, but I posted a link to it in the Space Makers channel yesterday. I can post another link in there. I've been working on it on Glitch, trying to work through it on my iPad. It turns out that's actually pretty cool, except for I don't get the Copilot stuff that I get on PC. But yeah, definitely there's some documentation there. It's generally going to be JavaScript, right? JavaScript at the core, because that's what runs in the browser. That's what the current SDK uses too. So it's the same language. It's just going to be a whole new way of kind of organizing all of the parts of the SDK, and a different way of kind of accessing them, right? But there's different options there, for anybody that's interested. There's lots of ways you can transpile to JavaScript from other languages. There's ways you can mix native code if you're interested. You can run WebAssembly. We've got a full browser stack that you can do lots of crazy things with, and that's the thing about it. We're talking about probably the most evolved developer tools and services and apps and APIs and all that kind of stuff than any other ecosystem, right? Than any other desktop or app-based ecosystem. The web has been around the longest and has evolved probably the most. So there'll be lots of ways, I'm sure, to be able to do different things. And yeah, I mean, since we're also working on allowing people to create components, MJ was threatening to build out a Lua compiler as a component. And, if he wants to build it, I wouldn't mind putting it in there, So Lua is another scripting language that's quite commonly used by games as like a user-facing scripting system, because, once again, it's very nice. It's very sandboxed. It's honestly a great language. I've used it a lot myself in the past too, so that's really cool. But yeah, I think there'll be loads of opportunities. I'll probably be building most of my stuff in TypeScript. For any of you that are familiar with that, it's a superset of JavaScript. And the new SDK is going to generate a bunch of boilerplate content that will make building your app easy, right? We're going to generate type definition files, which will automatically be detected by popular IDEs. Whether you're doing JavaScript or TypeScript, it will give you all the bells and whistles in terms of, IntelliSense and automatically filling and finishing out all your stuff. We want to hopefully make that consumable by Copilot and maybe OpenAI as well, so that you can integrate AI, start to ask it questions, hopefully maybe get it to build parts of it for you, so it can have a better understanding of what the code is, what it's supposed to do, and what it can kind of do with it. So the developer workflow, I'm hoping, will be way more evolved, and it will literally be, you're in Unity, you've got Visual Studio Code, you're writing stuff in JavaScript, and every time you save, it will live reload and refresh everything in your scene as you go. So that's going to be really cool. It's going to mean that we can, stay in Unity play mode, not have to go back and forth, not have to wait for Unity to load as much as it does typically, and get much more real-time feedback, much quicker iterations, right? Which will just make building spaces a lot faster. And this will be all before you've ever uploaded the space. All of this will be built into the Unity editor with our new plugin, which is the SDK going open source. Sorry, go ahead, Kurt.
You muted.
I think you might be muted, maybe?
Yes, I was muted. Sorry. What happens to A-frame? I've noticed some changes have happened with the animations and stuff, and I didn't know it was going. Is it changing to a different version, or is it just, it's going to JavaScript only now, or?
Yes, that's a great question. A-frame is A-frame is a great system. First of all, I want to definitely put that out there. I'm a big advocate for WebXR in general, and A-frame has been a big part of that for a number of years. Pushed it forward, I think, more than most. Right now, with the system that we've got, a big priority for us is being able to squeeze as much performance out of the system as we can. So believe it or not, none of these spaces that use A-frame have been running on A-frame for the last several weeks. We basically rewrote our own version of A-frame to run things as optimized as possible and to just fill out most of the requirements in terms of what our previous SDK was able to achieve. So it was mostly about backwards compatibility in that case. But believe it or not, A-frame is no longer involved in the process. We actually completely cut it out so that it saves as much performance as possible. The browser's doing way less stuff. It's much more idle in terms of CPU and anything else. And that way, then we can reserve as much possible performance for your space as we can. Now, what I do think is that I've been calling that a shim. A number of you might have heard me call that a shim. It's basically a replacement for the legit version of A-frame, but it behaves exactly the same for the most part, obviously without full support of everything in A-frame. But yeah, I mean, that absolutely could evolve in future into a full-blown A-frame plugin that supports more and more of the A-frame API. In fact, the point of the new SDK was to decouple from A-frame first and foremost, so that we did have a raw JavaScript interface. And then the plan was to actually build plugins on top of that would integrate with things like A-frame and in future 3JS directly, which is what A-frame is powered by, and also Babylon.js, another popular 3D web-based library that's maintained by Microsoft. Let's hope it sticks around. That was a joke. No, but no, honestly, Microsoft, they've got a good reputation when it comes to, developer tools and software and languages and everything else, right? Microsoft made a lot of things related to developers, pretty much everything. They almost own that entire ecosystem. Yeah, there was talk of them maybe acquiring Unity around the time that Unity announced that whole install fee thing, and everything went crazy for a little while. And if they had have acquired Unity, they would literally own almost every part of the whole developer space there. So, yeah. I think Babylon will probably stick around. Is the point I was making there. But yeah, so to answer your question, Kurt, A-frame, it's staying around. It's not going anywhere. We're not removing it, and in the future we'll likely improve on it. But for now, we just want to get the core system under the hood a lot more stable before we branch out into that.
So, do I use 3JS libraries? Is that, or that's not ready yet either?
You don't need to use 3JS libraries. You can use the new Banter library, if you will. Now, there's no library to include because we inject the library at runtime, so you don't have to include anything. But the new Banter library is similar to 3JS in that it's a 3D interface where you've got a lot of similar concepts. So yeah, that's definitely what would be. I guess the recommended workflow for the next while is going to be to use that JavaScript interface directly rather than using anything else on top.
Okay, so AI won't be aware of that, right?
Well, the hope is that we can make AI aware of that. I hope to build out a definition file that AI can consume in enough and comprehend enough to be able to fully understand that. And then if you've got AI built into your IDE, your integrated development environment, then hopefully that should be a really cool experience. And hopefully there could be a lot of things that you can just sit there and talk to AI and have it write your banter space. That's definitely something that we want to try to make possible.
Thank you.
Yeah, no problem. Hey, John, did I see you were gonna mosey on up there? What have you got? Are you muted?
No sense. I was
No,
thinking
I
of
can hear
would also be cool if we spent some effort in creating some cool worlds to attract people into Banter.
Sure.
Or for example, the people I have known in Altspace, various people, they were collecting worlds. And they were jumping there only to talk. I had also some favorite rooms which for chilling with cool Café Del Mar music.
Energy 52.
Yeah, for example, it would be great if we had, for example, a Millennium Falcon, and then we have the Star Wars community coming there and have a chat, or Star Trek, or some where we know there's a bigger community, which we can bring the people into certain rooms.
That's a great idea. Definitely, really great idea. In fact, I think the better thing here to probably focus on is better discovery, because believe it or not, I think we have 3 Star Wars related worlds that are fairly high quality that people could certainly visit, and we definitely have multiple Star Trek related worlds. One of them is, party and dance themed, but has at least the original and the next generation bridge, as well as some other parts you can go into. I don't know, I'm not going to geek out on that, but no, I totally agree with you. Exploring cool new worlds, that's definitely something that we always love to do. I'd be interested to know, John, have you how long have you been on the platform? Is this your first time today?
Yesterday I started using Banter.
Gotcha.
And I know I haven't never. Yeah, I know not much. I'm very new. I have spent much time in Altspace VR and have from the since COVID started, I have known Altspace VR and had observed people and what has gone there, what developments, seeing, and yeah.
Yes. Well, do you know, there's a lot of worlds in here that came from Altspace, believe it or not, lots of them. From back in the day, maybe around the start of COVID or just before. So maybe you might recognize some of those. There's also loads of great original worlds and loads of great user-created worlds as well. Maybe Shiseki would appreciate. I think we are on the button there in terms of the end of the event. So maybe I'll give him just a closer. We can all just wave to the people at home watching this live stream today. Oh, Megan's going crazy in the background. That's okay. It's not a seizure. She's just real excited because she won a Quest 3. Woo! Am I right, guys? Yeah. Go ahead, Shiseki. You can end the stream. Thank you so much.